So, global fans of cinema, you got Jaime En Fuego here once again for another edition of Enfuegotainment here for the month of October, where I'm having so much fun covering the entire series run of Tales from the Crypt. That's right, I had this genius idea where I was like, there's 31 days in October, there's 93 episodes in the entire run of Tales from the Crypt. Why not do 3 episodes a day in different installments and just basically, you know, follow my formula, cover the Bueno, the Malo, and the Feo, and yet just, yeah, rock it proper through the entire run. Man, it's been so much fun. I'm telling you guys, hearing that Danny Elfman theme just over and over, it has just, oh, it has warmed my heart oh so very much. So yeah, but just to get to the matter at hand, then we're beating around the bush. This show was just so incredibly done by HBO, and John Cassier's voice work, the fact that they brought on so many big-time directors, and the Bueno for today is most definitely going to be the big-time director that they brought on for the second time. So we had some Richard Donner action making his return. Yeah, you guys know Richard Donner, Goonies, and all the Lethal Weapon movies, and The Omen, and Superman. I mean, he's got a very long list of awesomeness, and he was actually one of the executive producers behind this. So jumping behind the lens a few times made total sense, and it's kind of funny when the horror show, which is the other project that has pretty much inspired this coverage on Enfuegotainment. If you guys haven't checked out the horror show, thehorrorshowchannel.com is where I do film reviews along with Cecil Laird, Marsha Parker, Rainbow Rules, hashtag awesome, Susie Von Slaughter, you know, shout out to SWAT HD and David Friedman, awesome guys. That's where we cover just everything spooktacular. And when we interviewed John Cassier earlier this year, the voice of the Crypt Keeper, at the Mad Monster 2015 here in Phoenix, he mentioned this episode specifically as one of his absolute favorites. And this one is called The Ventriloquist's Dummy. Yeah, a little play on words there. And it's basically got possibly 2 of the best performances you will see on the entirety of Tales from the Crypt, man. I mean, you have Bobcat Goldthwait. Yeah, you guys remember him. He voiced the bunny on Unhappily Ever After, did all kinds of crazy stand-up and voice work and, you know, just on-camera acting. Really funny guy, kind of strange. And so he is this kid who grows up wanting to be a ventriloquist because he got to see the almighty, rest in peace, such a funny guy, Don Rickles, man, on stage when he was a kid. And so he's all grown up and he tracks down Rickles and he's like, I need you to come to my first show. I need you to give me some pointers. I need your help. And the thing is, Rickles, he was such a good ventriloquist for a big reason that we cannot mention here because it would be a spoiler. But yeah, for John Cassier to mention this episode as being one of his favorites, you gotta make mention of it. It is definitely the Bueno of these 3. But, I mean, how could you not go wrong with Donner and with Rickles and Goldthwait playing off each other? It's funny, it gets gory. I mean, it's pretty much everything that a good, solid, memorable, yes, one that you will remember Tales from the Crypt episode. So, yeah, that's right. The Ventriloquist's Dummy. It was quite good, and it was originally seen in Tales from the Crypt number 28, so if you want to try to scope out the actual printed version that this story was based off of. So now, honestly, you know it's coming, right? We have to get to the Malo, the bad episode, and you know what? This one isn't even that bad. You know, it was called Judy, You're Not Yourself Today, and it's the Malo for the sheer fact that the acting was just so over the top. Not so much by the aforementioned Judy, but by the husband. And he's basically this gun-toting, just goofball, but he's doing his best Three Stooges impression. I don't know. The film is at its better, the film I should say, the short film, which is pretty much what all of these Tales from the Crypt episodes are, it's at its absolute best when it's just the 2 women who are pretty much in kind of a seesaw match throughout this entire episode. So the aforementioned Judy, she's a housewife, she's very mild-mannered and an interesting counterpart to the aforementioned goofy gun-toting husband who, he's not frightening in any way, shape, or form. He's very slapsticky, almost to the extreme, which is hence the Malo here. But she gets a knock on her door, and it's from this old woman who's going door to door trying to sell stuff, and she in turn gets her body switched because this is in fact a crazy old witch, and she's trying to steal her youth and run away, and can't really mention much beyond that, but it takes an interesting turn as every Tales from the Crypt does. I must admit, this episode is not bad. We have seen some bad on Tales from the Crypt. Not every episode is gold, but I mean, this one is just, it's definitely the weakest of these 3 that I got to watch today. Yeah, here for part 6 of the Tales from the Crypt coverage. It's the weakest, the acting, is it's all over the place. The director, she's not really a known horror director, the one who did this. She actually did a film called Children of a Lesser God, and you know, her lead actress in that won an Academy Award. It was nominated for a bunch more. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe that's why it's not that scary, but the end is actually pretty good and pretty effective. That's one thing that I will make mention here. So, in all honesty, this is designated as MALO today, but it's not really, it's not a MALO episode. It's not that bad. So, finally, we come to the episode that really had me second-guessing giving the distinction to Mr. Donner. Yeah, the Feo today it's one that I saw as a kid and remembered very distinctly as a kid. First and foremost, because I love basketball. I was a huge Michael Jordan fan. And it's the first Tales from the Crypt that gets away from the whitewashing. Yeah, seriously, we have an African-American cast in this entire thing, and it's really effective because of the fact that it's kind of an inner city, you know, impoverished type thing, and it really gets across the grittiness and the shadiness of what can actually happen in these type of scenarios, you know, where, Moses Gunn, and he is a standout performer in this, you know. He started out doing dramatic work, he was nominated for a Tony Award, he was in Roots, I mean, all kinds of big prolific dramatic work, but then in the twilight of his career in the 80s, he did the Amityville sequel, and he did the Firestarter big screen adaptation of the Stephen King book, and, you know, and then he's doing something like this, the Tales from the Crypt episode, actually one of his final acting credits. So he's a mortician, funeral director, pretty much an all-in-one in this, you know, kind of more rundown area of the city, and suddenly who shows up on his doorstep one day in the midst of a service but his nephew, and his nephew from a sister that he apparently did not like very much. The nephew's mom and dad, they were both killed in a tragic car accident, and so he's like, Uncle, I don't have anyone else to live with, man, like, where am I gonna go? What am I gonna do? And so, you know, when he starts looking at how strong and virile this boy is, he's like, okay, maybe I can actually have you do some work here around the funeral home. And you start to realize really quickly that despite being a man of faith, allegedly, he's misquoting scripture all the time. He's saying things like, a penny saved is a penny earned, and saying it's from the Bible. And even his nephew is like, wasn't it Benjamin Franklin who said that? So, you know, he's also, besides being very cheap, he's very shady with his funeral practices. I mean, not using proper chemicals, stealing from the corpses. I mean, his performance is really so fantastic because he is just so bad, you know. He's such a bad person despite, you know, the face that he's trying to portray. And so he ends up coming to odds with his not his grandson, with his nephew, you know, over the course of the episode, and it gets gruesome. Some stuff happens, and I cannot divulge any, but this is one directed by Jack Shoulder, who notoriously did the very bad Freddy 2 Nightmare on Elm Street sequel. He did the Wishmaster sequel. I mean, he's not really very known for doing much, like, very memorable cult status beyond, like, I'd say maybe The Hidden, you know, because he also directed that, but his directing in this, in the short form, is tremendous, you know. It's bloody when it needs to be, but he also got great performances out of his actors, you know. The nephew, but I just have to keep coming back to Moses Gunn because when I was a kid and I saw this episode, some of the stuff that he did, it chilled me. It really disturbed me. I mean, you can only imagine the type of shadiness that can go on in a funeral home with somebody, you know. He's basically got these shells of these people who are no longer living, and he can basically use and abuse them in any way that he wants. So I can't mention anything beyond that, but this actually, it might be an episode I recommend more than the Ventriloquist Dummy. Yeah, seriously. And the one thing that I forgot to actually mention was the name of the episode. It's called Fitting Punishment. Yeah, so seek that one out if you get the chance. You can find Tales from the Crypt, buy episodes on Amazon, or try to get those out of print, you know, seasons. They're floating around somewhere. Go to like a Zia Records here in Phoenix, or, you know, whatever type of secondhand store, you know, jump on eBay. But the seasons are very worth watching. I'm having so much fun, as I mentioned. Once more, I have been Jaime En Fuego. This has been Enfuegotainment and our month-long October coverage of Tales from the Crypt, the entire full series run. You can find me at Jaime En Fuego on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm always talking about cinema, musica. It's pretty much my two passions, but just arts of any kind are where it's at because they enrich our lives so much. So until I get to discuss more Tales from the Crypt with you guys mañana here on Enfuegotainment, I extend that grande gracias once more, and a ta-ta for now. Adios.